light infantry, which is now been turned into the rifles. So a lot of people don't know what the light infantry is about, where it came from, and they don't really understand why we use the bugle. So what I've done, I've put a short presentation together that will hopefully give you the insight as to why we were formed.
The bugle horn. Since man first took up arms against one another, fighting forces have constantly adapted their methods and equipment used to fight, usually to the type of terrain they will be operating in. Since the introduction of firearms with an effective range of 100 yards plus, battles were fought by infantry in close order. The close order formation allowed them to concentrate their fire and afford best protection against cavalry. At the height of battle, voices would be drowned out and signals were given by drums. Light companies. In 1760, the British Army was in North America fighting the French and their native Red Indian allies. The country was normally too close for the use of cavalry and had limited fields of fire. The Red Indians had already adapted to this terrain and used it to devastating effects against British methods. So the British Army had to adapt and beat the enemy at its own game. It was decided that one company out of each regiment would be refitted and organised into a lighter, more mobile force than the rest. These light companies were the first riflemen, and from 1770 onwards, every foot regiment had included a light company to its establishment. Introduction of the bugle horn. The light company troops were encouraged to act independently in small groups wherever needed. Because of the fast, mobile actions of the troops, the drummer no longer provided adequate communication. It was a cumbersome instrument in the rough terrain and its sound didn't carry far, so something better was needed. Fighting alongside the British were the Hanoverian and Hessian troops. Amongst these were the special units called Jäger. These units were men from the forests of Germany and Austria, skilled in hunting. Their ancestors had used the horn of a wild ox, at one time abundant in the forests of Europe, to produce huntsman-like sounds. In time, the bugle horns were shaped from metal. Those with silver in them gave the best sound. The bugle horn became the badge to identify those connected with hunting. This was probably the first encounter with the bugle horn and badge by the British Army. The bugle horn was easily carried and with a loud penetrating sound was an ideal replacement for the drum and was unofficially adopted to an increasing extent by the light companies, and by the end of the century several field sounds were in use. These included march, extend, run, lie down, arise, skirmish, and pursue the enemy. Thus, the bugle horn started to become a distinctive feature of the light companies, and increasingly it was used as a sign or a badge to distinguish them from other companies within the regiment. Calls of the bugle horn. As I mentioned, the bugle horn was adopted and a number of field sounds were introduced. This is a tradition that is employed within the rifles and to this day can be heard around the battalion. What we want to do now is take you back 200 years for a small taste of the rifleman's daily routine. It is 1802 in a distant land on a cold winter morning. Forward defensive pickets are manned and keep watch while the rest of the battalion sleep. At 6 a.m, the guard wake up one of the buglers, and the battalion are woken with the sounding of Reveille.
Bugler, sound Reveille.
with sore heads. The men stir and crawl from their pits. After a quick brew, cigarette, and scratching of their noses, soon their attention turns towards the field kitchen. With tongues hanging out and mess tins in hand, they wait for the next call of the day. Cookhouse.
Bugler, sound, cookhouse.
Belly's full, room job's done, and a high shine to stolen French boots. The battalion are called together with fall in.
Bugler, sound, fall in.
By 0900 hours, the RSM is bored and it gets the battalion on area cleaning. At 10:30, the troops see the mail train arrive, and by 1100 hours, the company orderlies are chomping at the bit for the next call. Mail call.
Bugler, sound, mail call.
While troops settle down to read the mail, the enemy are spotted advancing on positions, and the picket commander orders general alarm.
Bugler, sound, general alarm.
The troops are in disarray and running around trying to sort themselves out. There is a loud moan heard coming from the mess tent as the RSM closes the bar and orders the bugle major to sound fall in.
Bugler, sound, fall in.
The picket commander reports to the commanding officer, and at the same time, the quartermaster briefs the CQ messers. 5 musket balls per man, no more, no less. Any not used needs to be accounted for and returned. The commanding officer evaluates the situation and tells the bugle major to sound all officers.
Bugler, sound, all officers.
Orders are given and the battalion defends against enemy assault. The commanding officer realises the enemy is beginning to falter and orders the bugle major to sound the advance.
Bugler, sound, the advance.
The enemy quickly fall back and start to flee the battlefield. It's time to get amongst them. So with swords fixed, the battalion launches a counter-attack. At the double.
Bugler, sound, the double.
The enemy are defeated and the battalion reorg. The commanding officer is so pleased with the French eagle presented to him that he orders the quartermaster to issue double rations of port and for the bugle major to sound no more parades.
Bugler, sound, no more parades.
I hope this has given you a small insight into one of the traditions that we still hold dearly within the regiment today.
Thank you very much. That concludes our short presentation.